The door that should never open. If you think the most dangerous prisoners are locked away forever, you're already wrong. Subscribe, stay close, and don't blink, because what happens behind these walls isn't meant to be seen. The alarm didn't sound immediately. That was the first problem. Inside one of America's most secure prisons, silence spread to the concrete corridors like something alive. No shouting, no panic, no rushing footsteps. Just a sudden, unnatural stillness. Correctional Officer Daniel Mercer noticed it first. He had been walking his usual route along Tier C, keys clipped to his belt, radio humming softly with background chatter. Routine, predictable, until the chatter stopped. Mercer paused, lifting the radio to his ear. "Control, you copy?" Nothing. A faint buzzing replaced the signal. He frowned and kept moving. Cells lined both sides of the corridor, reinforced steel doors, narrow observation slots. Inmates usually filled the silence, muttering, pacing, watching. But now nothing. Every cell was quiet. Too quiet. Mercer stepped closer to the first door, peering through the slot. The inmate inside sat on his bunk, perfectly still, eyes open, not asleep, just still. Mercer moved to the next cell. Same thing. And the next. Every inmate on the tier frozen in place. His grip tightened around the radio. Control, respond. Something's wrong. Still nothing. Then a click, soft, precise. Mercer turned. At the far end of the corridor, a door opened. Not forced, not broken. Unlocked. A man stepped out. Inmate uniform. Calm posture. Slow, deliberate movements. Mercer's voice hardened. "Stop right there." The man didn't run, didn't even react. He just kept walking. And that's when Mercer realized something else. The doors along the corridor were unlocking, one by one. A quiet series of metallic clicks echoed through the tier. Mercer's pulse spiked. "This is Tier C. We have a breach." No response. He reached for his keys, but they were already slipping from his fingers. His vision blurred. The corridor tilted slightly. What is this? The last thing he saw before everything went dark was the inmate walking past him and smiling. Detective Marcus Hale arrived at the prison less than an hour later. By then, the facility was under full lockdown. Emergency lights cast a cold blue glow across the walls, painting everything in a harsh, unreal tone. But something didn't add up. There was no alarm. Hale asked, stepping into the control room. Warden Ellis shook his head, his face tense. System went down for exactly 4 minutes. Hale stopped. "For minutes?" Ellis nodded. No cameras, no communications, no control override. Hale looked around the room, at the rows of monitors now flickering back to life. "For minutes is all it took?" Ellis didn't answer, because they both knew that was more than enough. "Casualties?" Hale asked. "None," Ellis replied. Hale frowned. "None. No injuries. No fights. No forced exits." Hale's expression tightened. "Then what happened?" Ellis hesitated, then said it. "We're missing someone." Tier C was colder than the rest of the prison. Not in temperature, in feeling. Hale walked the corridor slowly, his eyes scanning every detail. Officers stood at intervals, shaken but alert. The inmates were back in their cells now, but something had changed. They weren't talking. They weren't moving much. They were watching. Every single one of them. Watching Hale. He stopped beside Officer Mercer, now conscious but pale, sitting against the wall. "You were here?" Hale asked. Mercer nodded weakly. "Tell me what you saw." Mercer swallowed. "They didn't move," he said. "None of them. It was like they were waiting." "Waiting for what?" Mercer's eyes drifted down the corridor. "For him." Hale's voice lowered. "Who?" Mercer hesitated. "I don't know his name," he said, "but he wasn't like the others." Hale leaned closer. "What do you mean?" Mercer's voice dropped to a whisper. He didn't look locked in. A chill ran through Hale's spine. He stood and continued down the corridor, stopping at the cell that had been opened. It looked normal. Too normal. No damage. No signs of struggle. Just an empty space where someone used to be. Who was assigned here? Hale asked. An officer checked his tablet. Name's Isaac Vance. High-risk inmate. Multiple offenses. Known for manipulation and strategic planning. Hale nodded slowly. Where is he now? The officer didn't respond. Because they didn't know. Hale stepped into the cell. Something caught his eye immediately. A marking. Scratched into the wall beside the bunk. 3 vertical lines. Crossed by a diagonal slash. Fresh. Deliberate. He reached out, running his fingers over it. This means something, he said quietly. Behind him, Warden Ellis shifted uncomfortably. I've seen it before, Ellis admitted. Hale turned. Where? Ellis hesitated. Other facilities, he said. Different incidents. Same symbol. Hale's eyes narrowed. And you didn't report it? Ellis looked away. It was classified. Hale stepped closer. Why? Ellis met his gaze. Because every time it appeared, someone disappeared. Silence filled the cell. Heavy, unavoidable. Hale looked back at the marking. 3 lines. 1 slash. Not random. Not meaningless. A pattern. Pull the camera footage. Hale said. Ellis nodded. We recovered partial data. Minutes later, they stood in front of a monitor. The footage began. The corridor appeared normal. Then, everything stopped. Inmates froze. Officers slowed. Like time itself had hesitated. Then the doors unlocked. One by one. Hale leaned closer. There, he said. A figure stepped out of Vance's cell. Calm. Controlled. Isaac Vance. But he wasn't alone. Another figure stood behind him. Unfamiliar. Not in uniform. Not restrained. Just present. Hale's voice tightened. Pause it. The screen froze. The second man's face came into focus. Clear enough. Too clear. Run identification. Hale ordered. The system processed the image. Seconds passed. Then the result appeared, and the room went silent, because the name on the screen shouldn't have been there. Ellis whispered, That's not possible. Hale didn't blink. Say it, he said. Ellis swallowed. That's Dr. Nathan Cole. Hale frowned. Who is that? Ellis's voice dropped. He used to work here. Hale's eyes sharpened. Used to? Ellis nodded slowly. He was pronounced dead last year. The air in the room shifted. Hale turned back to the frozen image, to the man who shouldn't exist, standing inside a locked prison, walking out beside one of the most dangerous inmates in the country. And as the footage resumed, they saw one final detail. As both men stepped into the corridor, every inmate in every cell turned their heads at the exact same time and watched them leave. The system that watches back. The footage ended, but the image refused to leave the room. Every inmate turning at once, not reacting, not surprised, just aware. Detective Marcus Hale stood motionless, eyes locked on the frozen screen. Played again. The technician hesitated, then rewound the clip. The same sequence unfolded. Stillness, doors unlocking, Isaac Vance stepping out, followed by the second man, Dr. Nathan Cole, dead, officially, walking, alive. But Hale wasn't watching them this time. Slow it down, he said. Frame by frame, the corridor came alive in fragments. And then, there, Hale pointed, the inmates. Before they turned, there was a delay. Less than a second, but enough. They're not reacting to him, Hale said quietly. Warden Ellis frowned. Then what are they reacting to? Hale's voice dropped. A signal. Silence filled the control room. Because if that was true, then every inmate on that tier had received it at the exact same time, without a word, without a sound. Check for audio interference. Hale ordered. Low-frequency signals. Anything that could trigger a response. The technician began scanning. Nothing on standard channels, he said. But there's a spike here just before the doors unlock. Hale stepped closer. What kind of spike? The technician zoomed in. Electromagnetic. Short burst. Hard to trace. Ellis shook his head. That doesn't make sense. This facility is shielded. Hale didn't respond, because something else had just clicked. Pull Cole's file, he said. The screen shifted. bringing up archive records. Dr. Nathan Cole, behavioral systems analyst, specialized in neuroresponse conditioning. Ellis exhaled slowly. He worked on inmate compliance models, studied how groups respond to stimuli. Hale's jaw tightened. Not just how they respond. He looked back at the footage, how they synchronize. The room went quiet again, because now the stillness in the corridor made sense. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was control. Cole didn't just fake his death, Hale said. He took his work with him. Ellis's voice dropped. You think he's controlling them? Hale shook his head. No, I think he's guiding them. The distinction was subtle, but it changed everything. They returned to Tier C. This time, it felt different. The inmates were no longer just watching. They were waiting. Hale walked slowly down the corridor, stopping at random cells. Did you see him? He asked one inmate. No response. Another. Do you know Isaac Vance? Silence. But then, one inmate spoke, a low voice from the far end. He passed through. Hale turned. The man sat cross-legged on his bunk, eyes steady, expression calm. Who? Hale asked. The inmate tilted his head slightly. The one who opens the doors. A chill ran through Hale. What does that mean? The inmate's lips curved into the faintest smile. He doesn't break the system, he said. He is the system. Ellis stepped forward. That's enough. But Hale raised a hand, stopping him. When did you see him? Hale asked. The inmate's gaze shifted briefly toward the wall. Time doesn't matter, he said. Only the pattern. Hale followed his gaze. Another marking. But this one was different. More lines, more connections, expanding, like a map being drawn in fragments across the prison. How many times has this happened? Hale asked. The inmate didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, You're late? Hale's chest tightened. Late for what? The inmate's smile widened slightly. For the next one. Back in the control room, the tension had shifted into urgency. Cross-reference every facility Cole has worked in. Hale ordered. I want incident reports, outages, unexplained movements, everything. The system processed a request. Data filled the screens. Facilities across multiple states. Dates spanning years. And a pattern. Small disruptions. Unlogged minutes. Minor irregularities. Each one dismissed at the time. Each one connected now. Ellis stared at the data. This has been happening for years. Hale nodded, and no one saw it. Because no one was looking for it. Until now. Where was Cole last assigned? Hale asked. The technician scrolled. Here, he said. This facility, 6 months before his reported death. Hale's eyes narrowed. And after, the technician hesitated. Nothing, he said. No records. No activity. Hale exhaled slowly. That's not true. Ellis looked at him. What do you mean? Hale pointed at the pattern on the screen. He's been active the entire time, he said. Just not officially. A new alert interrupted them. Sharp. Urgent. Detective. The technician said, his voice tight. You need to see this. The screen switched to a live internal feed. Another tier. Different section of the prison, but the same stillness. Hale felt it immediately. That's happening now, he said. On the screen, an officer stood in the corridor, frozen. Inmates, still. Then, a click. A door unlocked. Hale's voice snapped. Get units there now. But even as he said it, the pattern continued. Door after door. Unlocking. Precise. Silent. And then, a figure stepped out. Not Vance. Not Cole. Someone new. Hale's eyes locked onto the screen. This isn't just one escape, he said. Ellis's voice was barely audible. How many are there? Hale didn't answer, because the answer was already unfolding in front of them. The figure moved calmly down the corridor, and behind him, another one, already waiting, not released, not restrained, just present, like they had always been there. Hale's pulse spiked. Pause it. The screen froze. 2 figures, side by side. The second one turned slightly toward the camera, and for a brief moment, his face became clear. The system processed the image automatically. Recognition attempt initiated. Searching, then a match. But this time, the result didn't show a prisoner. It showed a staff record. A correctional officer, active duty, assigned to this facility, standing inside a locked cell block, where he was not supposed to be. Ellis stepped back, his voice shaking slightly. That's impossible. Hale didn't blink. No, he said quietly. It's inside. The realization hit harder than anything before. This wasn't inmates escaping. This was infiltration. The system wasn't failing. It was being used. From both sides. And as the footage resumed, the officer stepped forward, unlocked another door, and let someone else out. Hale's voice dropped, cold and certain. This isn't a breach. Ellis looked at him, fear finally visible. Then what is it? Hale stared at the growing pattern on the screen, at the doors opening in sequence, at the figures moving without resistance, at the system working perfectly. It's a transfer, he said, and just before the feed cut out, one of the inmates looked directly into the camera and smiled, the place beyond the walls. The smile lingered on the screen even after the feed went black. Detective Marcus Hale didn't move. He stood in the control room, staring at the empty monitor as if the image might return, as if the answer might somehow reveal itself if he waited long enough. But it didn't, because whatever was happening inside that prison wasn't meant to be seen twice. Warden Ellis broke the silence first. We've lost the feed across that entire block, he said, his voice tight. Again. Hale nodded slowly. Same window? For minutes, Ellis confirmed. Hale exhaled. For minutes. Every time. Precise. Controlled. Enough to move people without leaving evidence. Lock down the facility. Hale ordered. No one in or out. Ellis hesitated. If this is inside... It is inside. Hale cut in, and were already behind. By the time they reached the affected tier, the doors were sealed again. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Officers stood in position, alert but confused. Inmates were back in their cells, sitting, pacing, staring, like nothing had happened. But Hale could feel it. Something had changed. Report, he said, approaching the nearest officer. The man swallowed. Sir, I don't remember anything. 1 second I was standing here. The next, everything was reset. Hale's jaw tightened. Anyone missing? The officer hesitated, then nodded. 1 inmate. And he paused. And what? 1 of ours. Hale exchanged a look with Ellis. It was happening again. Not just inmates. Staff. Names, Hale said. The officer checked his tablet. Inmate Leon Briggs. High risk, behavioral manipulator. Hale's eyes narrowed slightly. And the officer? The man hesitated again. Officer Daniel Mercer. The name hit hard. Hale turned slowly. The same Mercer from Tier C? Ellis nodded grimly. He was reassigned after the first incident. Hale's voice dropped. He wasn't reassigned. Ellis frowned. What are you saying? Hale looked back at the corridor. He was moved. Back inside the control room, the pattern was no longer just a theory. It was visible, mapped across multiple facilities, each marking connected, each incident aligned, each disappearance part of something larger. They're not escaping randomly, Hale said. They're being transferred along a route. Ellis stared at the data. A route to where? Hale didn't answer immediately, because the answer was already forming, and it didn't make sense. Cross-reference all locations tied to these incidents, he said. Find the intersection point. The system processed the data. Lines formed across the digital map. Facilities, routes, timelines. And then they converged. 1 location. Unmarked, unregistered. Ellis leaned closer. What is that? The technician shook his head. There's no official record. No facility listed at those coordinates. Hale's voice was quiet. There is now. The drive took them off the main roads, then off the marked ones. Miles of empty land stretched in every direction, dry and silent under the fading light, until they saw it. A structure, low, reinforced, hidden in plain sight. No signs, no markings, just concrete and steel. This isn't on any map, Ellis said. Hale stepped out of the vehicle. That's the point. The air felt different here. Still, heavy, like the place wasn't meant to be found. They approached the entrance. No guards, no cameras visible, just a single door. Unlocked. Hale pushed it open. Inside, the space was vast. Not like a prison. No cells, no bars, just rows of enclosed rooms, each sealed, each identical. And on the walls, the markings. Not one, not two, dozens, connected, forming a complete pattern. Ellis whispered, "What is this place?" Hale stepped further inside, his eyes scanning the structure. "This is the destination," he said. A voice echoed from the far end. Calm, familiar. You're only seeing part of it. Hale turned. Dr. Nathan Cole stepped into the light. Alive, unchanged, watching them with quiet precision. It was never about keeping them locked in, Cole said. It was about moving them where they needed to be. Ellis's voice shook. Why? What is this? Cole gestured around them. A controlled environment. Outside your system. Beyond your limits. Hale stepped forward. You're building something. Cole smiled faintly. No, he said. I'm organizing it. Hale's eyes hardened. Using inmates? Cole tilted his head. Using assets. The word echoed. Assets. Not prisoners. Not people. Pieces. You've been moving them for years, Hale said. Through outages, through cooperation, through manipulation. Cole nodded once, and no one noticed. Hale's voice dropped. Until now. Cole's expression didn't change. Even now, he said, you're only seeing what I allow you to see. A low hum filled the room. Subtle, growing. Ellis looked around. What is that? Hale's chest tightened, because he recognized it. The same frequency. The same signal. Don't move, Hale said sharply. But it was already too late. From the surrounding rooms, doors began to unlock, one by one. Click, click, click. Figures stepped out. Calm, silent, watching. Inmates, officers, all standing together. No distinction, no resistance. Cole stepped back slightly, observing. This is what the system was always meant to become, he said. Not control alignment. Hale reached for his weapon, but his hand hesitated. Not from fear, from something else. A pressure, a pull, like his body was being slowed. Like the signal was reaching him too. Ellis staggered slightly. I can't. Hale forced himself forward. Shut it down, he shouted. Cole shook his head. You can't shut down something that no longer belongs to you. The figures began to move, not toward them, past them, toward another corridor, another exit, another transfer. Hale pushed through the pressure, grabbing Ellis and pulling him back. We need to go. Now. They stumbled out of the structure, the door slamming behind them. The hum faded. The silence returned. But nothing felt the same. Weeks later, the official report was filed. Unauthorized facility. No confirmed activity. Case unresolved. But Hale knew the truth. He had seen it. The system wasn't broken. It had evolved. 3 months later, a new incident. Different state. Same pattern. Same signal. And one final detail that made everything worse. The transport log listed a new name. Not an inmate. Not staff. Just a designation. Transfer supervisor. No identity. No record. Just a title. And beneath it, a familiar signature. Dr. Nathan Cole. Still moving. Still organizing. Still one step ahead. And this time, the system wasn't hiding him anymore. It was following him. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for what comes next.